let me ask you, do you think vet schools are more worried about preparing a veterinarian that's really ready for be a robust veterinarian, well-rounded veterinarian once they graduate, or students failing out?
Again, at Davis and Western and all these schools, even Penn's coming up with it now. They're building in case-based learning, problem-based learning, really trying to teach students in one way or another, like, hey, it's normal to not know the answer. Here's the steps you go through to find an answer and to come to the right solution. The college that decides what the colleges teach put out a really interesting review this year, 400 pages long, basically saying that a gold standard is problematic for cost and incremental care, that it's almost been weaponized or used against us, that it's not something we should be pursuing on a regular day-to-day basis, and that creating affordable pathways for clients needs to be our future, which...
Andrew, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. It's a chilly day over here in North Carolina, but a good day nonetheless. How are you doing today, G?
I'm doing good. My Rams lost to your Panthers, so I was kind of pissed. But that's okay. That's okay. We're still the NFC leader right now, so we'll see what happens. But
my fingers crossed.
Yeah. Do you get a chance to make it over to Charlotte at all?
I get over to Charlotte like 2 or 3 times a year. Never made it to a Panthers game. I always end up at the NASCAR museum as a race car fan. Like that. That's what I think of when I think of that city. But the Panthers are fun too.
Are you born in the South?
Nope. Born and raised in Northern California. So grew up as a Giants fan, A's fan, all that kind of stuff. But moved over here to North Carolina.
You didn't say 49ers. You didn't say thank you.
Yeah, my dad deeply loved the 49ers. And as a son, you just have to like not root for your dad's team. I don't know what it's about. But yes, the 40 whiners is what we called them just to irritate my dad.
And you're not a Raiders fan.
Well, no, I'm a civilized human being, so I couldn't do that. But
hey, the Raiders fans have changed since they've gone to Vegas.
Yeah,
because the games are so expensive to go to now. So, though the fan base at the games have changed a bit, but it's been exciting. I mean, North Carolina is a great state. I mean, for people who haven't been there, there's so many different things. I mean, it's kind of like in my opinion, it's like a stretched out California, right? You got the beach, you got the mountains, but you got the Southern culture, which is, I mean, very, very welcoming. Yeah. Like strong work ethic. When someone truly asks you how you're doing, they really do care. But the problem is that, you know, when I went to undergrad there, what we used to call the halfbacks kept moving there. And the halfbacks are the New Yorkers that moved down to Florida, figured it was too hot, moved back to North Carolina.
Dude, it's hilarious. You're absolutely right. You'll meet people from New York and Boston, and they stick out like a sore thumb because everyone is like, nice, going about their day, and then someone will run you over on the sidewalk, and you're like, like you said, a halfbacker just doing their thing.
Yeah, so that's what we used to call them, the halfbackers, because Florida was always too hot for them. Yep. You know, but I can understand. Don't get me wrong. New York's a wonderful town, but I don't know how anyone, I mean, unless you live out on Long Island, I mean, raising a family in downtown New York is harder than heck.
Oh, it's true, man. You're living like Harry Potter, except the whole family's the one living in a broom closet under the stairs, as it were. Long Island is beautiful, though. And anytime I've driven out there, I'm always surprised that it's just, there's a lot of more space out there than people realize.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's face it, Andrew, you've worked in over 100 different hospitals. So, I mean, if anyone, you've made your, that's crazy. 100 different hospitals. And are they all over the country, or are they basically, were they in the South or?
Yeah, we'll say 98% of them were in the state of California, because again, that's where I was licensed. So anything all the way up to the very tip of California, like think Redding, all the way down to like the greater San Diego area. I made good work at California. But I did practice under the supervision of another veterinarian, like in Texas and stuff like that. I don't do horses, but I wanted to at least say I can touch a horse. And so I went out to this really, really cool, almost like cowboy veterinary facility. Actually, it's what we're talking about, Dr. G. They blew my mind. They were all about spectrum of care and access to care. They had an MRI machine, and they did an MRI for every patient as part of like their radiographs. They basically found a used one for cheap, and their business model was that we do these every day. So it was only like $300 to have an MRI done. They did backs there as well because the nearest specialty referral center was 6 hours away. So they basically created a general practice shop that would do everything, touch everything. They did dogs, cats, horses, cows. It was like the ultimate old school vet with technology involved. It was, again, just wild to see.
Where was that?
I was in Los Gatos, like right on the
Los
edge of the border.
Gatos. Yeah, yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, Los Got. There's another equine veterinarian that's based out of California that, the equine profession is struggling to find veterinarians, and
Yeah.
basically what they do is he goes and buys equine veterinary hospitals that are not doing well, or the owner wants to get out. And then if you work for him, basically you can go work in all these different states at his equine practices
Yep.
as an associate. So like if you want to go to Idaho for a little bit, you go do shifts up there. If you want Seattle or in the Washington area, you go do that. I mean, that's one way to get out of the clinic for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to hear that there's new options for our equine brethren. Because yeah, everything I read, at least in the AVMA annual report, I'm like, doesn't seem like the pay is great. It seems like the work is particularly hard. So I'm happy to hear that they're getting options.
Well, I mean, if you get only $50 for a 3 a.m. emergency call, I mean, it's very hard to find a veterinarian that wants to, at least nowadays, especially. And if you have a family, get out of bed to go on a call at 3 a.m. for a horse that's colicking.
That's what I mean. It's a dangerous job. No offense. I could go drive Uber for 30 minutes and maybe make $50 still too. And like, it's just a whole different ball game these days.
Well, you might as well have been an Uber driver with how much you went up and down the state of California.
I even was doing it for a little bit where I'd work a couple days in Northern California, fly down to LA, pick up a day shift, stay the night, work another shift, fly back home. Again, you in pursuit of getting to know the industry and really understanding the ups, the downs, the opportunities and problems. It was some fun stories.
So, what do you think the darkest truth about this profession that no one wants to admit? I mean, you would
Ooh.
know.
The darkest truth about this profession that no one wants to admit. It's almost like double sided. There is no other industry like veterinary medicine. There just isn't. Like I've talked to every kind of group, every kind of portfolio. But on the flip side of things, some of the problems that we as veterinarians face aren't that unique. We are still humans at the end of the day. We're still a service oriented industry, no matter how much corporate or private tries to spin it other ways. Our job as veterinarians is to help pet owners by helping their pets. And I don't know, for some people, that's a dark truth. They feel like they got in this just for the pets, but I don't think you can separate them. If we don't have happy owners, we're not going to get to keep making pets happy.
Do you think veterinarians as a whole are too much of a people pleaser?
No, honestly, I think that we are really good and trained over time to speak our own language, but we're not trained to speak a diverse group of languages. We're not able to talk to every different client type as well as I wish we could, or as I wish we did. So I don't think that we're people pleasers, or not, at least that's like our only fault. I just think that we can't always communicate value. We're very humble. Like another thing that I'll tell new grads, like we hide our work instead of showing how cool it is. When we do an X-ray and an ultrasound and come up with a diagnostic and a solution plan, what clients see is I sat in a dingy room for 15 minutes. The doctor came in with a bill. They fixed my dog, but they didn't see the level of expertise that we did. So I tell clients like, bring them back to radiology, show them the X-rays, have them with you with the ultrasound. Like, uh, humble work is hard to show the value.
Yeah, I mean, you would know. Again, tons of hospitals, and you've said before there are things that hospitals do well, and there's things that hospitals struggle with.
Yeah.
What's the universal they do well?
Universal thing that they do well is they care. What that care looks like changes, but I've never met a veterinary hospital that as a whole is just like, hey, this animal's sad, sick, or in pain. We as a group, we just don't care. Never once did I come across that.
You never ever.
Never ever. Even the most politely put between you and me, Jay, or G, sorry, even the most burned out veterinary hospital group, even the ones that just like, yeah, it's 9 o'clock and we're literally counting the hours till we close. Deep down, you can tell though that they still care. Whether they get upset about things, whether they act short with clients, they still genuinely care, and it just comes out kind of in weird ways.
Do you separate care from empathy then? Because I feel as if veterinarians have lost empathy. I think the staffs have lost empathy because I'm
Hmm.
doing relief shifts now and I can see,
Yeah.
like, when I walk in, I'm like a breath of fresh air sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, so losing empathy versus losing care. It's a really good question. I kind of wonder if humanity is losing empathy these days. That's a whole nother conversation, but you're right. Empathy to me means like, yeah, I'm going to go the extra mile or even the basic mile for this client, for this person, or for this problem. And you're right, that's probably lacking. But care is almost that thing that makes them internally hold their head high and be like, but the field I chose matters. Maybe not even what I'm doing today matters, but the field I chose, like, is noble, has a reason. Like the veterinary profession exists for a reason.
Was there any lessons you learned from a hospital that was failing?
Like a hospital that like just wasn't doing what they could be doing or what they should be
Yeah,
doing.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Not meeting customers where they are, and it could take a lot of different forms. Some hospitals wanted to offer ultra gold standard, which again, I understand the value of the profession, although that's another thing I'm happy to debate these days. I think gold standard is actually problematic rather than helpful. And on the flip side, I've seen clients that just wanted to find a little bit more of an option to take it the next step for their pets. And when veterinarians get, or technicians for that matter, get really stuck in their routine of, well, hey, here's the way to do things. I'll tease one veterinarian without naming them. They had all of medicine distilled down to three things. They'd be like, you're going to get an injection, you're going to get sub-Q fluids, you're going to get referred. When you get into that sort of formula-based medicine, it's really hard to meet clients where they are because you're asking them to just meet you 100% where you are.
Well, that's interesting what you said about the gold standard, because I think that the definition of the gold standard needs to change because cost of care is so astronomical right now for a lot of clients.
Yeah.
I think gold standards coming, let's see if you agree or disagree. I think gold standards coming up with a plan that you can do as much as you can without strapping the client.
Mm-hmm.
I think that should be the new gold standard because, obviously it's so weird because the new grads come out and the first thing they're always worried about is getting sued.
Yep.
And I'm like, who the hell is teaching you that? But anyways, but I mean, the problem is veterinary medical boards always look at the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where do we start? Where do we start changing that gold standard so that it can't be held against veterinarians? Because there's nothing wrong with doing just symptomatic care versus an animal that comes in and then you do every test under the sun.
Right, absolutely. This is something I've started to do a light speaking tour on, and I'm happy to continue to learn too. By no means am I an expert on this, but the ACVIM, the American College of Veterinary, not sorry, VIM, the AAC, the college that decides what the colleges teach, put out a really interesting review this year, 400 pages long, basically saying that a gold standard is problematic for cost and incremental care, that it's almost been weaponized or used against us, that it's not something we should be pursuing on a regular day-to-day basis, and that creating affordable pathways for clients needs to be our future, which when you look at the synchronicity like lifetime of care study that came out earlier this year too, which blew my mind, it's very much in line with that as well.
Do you think they're going to change the way they teach these students?
I think the old schools will not. I guess that's kind of where the term comes from, right? Old school. But I think the new schools definitely are and will. Like Clemenson, I'm involved in working with some friends there. They're teaching spectrum of care from day one. They're working on incremental care. Again, all these are buzzwords, but they're working on building teaching hospitals that really push the idea of meet clients where they are, be smart, be savvy with the way that you work things up instead of just the ultimate gold standard. Those could be exceptions, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you're working with vet schools, I think all classes should just be pass fail. Okay. I think having grades in a professional school is crazy because you go to a professional school to learn, and they're still creating that perfectionist mentality and that competition to be the top of the class. Like I was totally C equals DVM. We're good. Just get me through this. Because I think vet schools are more. Do you think vets? Let me ask you, do you think vet schools are more worried about preparing a veterinarian that's really ready for be a robust veterinarian, well-rounded veterinarian once they graduate, or students failing out?
I think there's a chasm between what lifetime faculty, lifetime academic people think the real world looks like, and what the real world looks like to us on a day-to-day basis. I don't think they're trying to set students up to fail, just the opposite. But again, I think that there's a lack of real veterinarians who practice GP for 20 years in teaching positions, which leads to more of this emphasis on academic performance, perfectionism, as we appropriately touched on. Again, like grading rubrics, because that's what they came from. So that's what continues on.
Yeah, I mean, were you one of those C equals DVMs? Or were you like, oh, I got to do really well?
Oh no, man! As a proud Davis grad, I was a dummy compared to some of the literal geniuses. Again, I'll praise my classmates. People who had photographic memories. Gee, they'd look at a page and be like, "Bam!" I'm like, "You didn't really memorize that." 6 months later, they're still reading it off. I'm like, "We are not at the same level." So yes, C makes DVM. I was a struggling C to B student, and even in undergrad too. Like, my superpower is that I can learn something and apply it. You talk me through, like we were talking about earlier, how to do a splenectomy. All right, I can do a splenectomy. But just memorize, regurgitate, no, I don't have that skill set. So I always struggled academically, and I raised a lot of eyebrows. People were like, well, are you going to be a good vet because you seem to struggle with the information? And it's like, no, I know how to apply it, and I know how to work with people. Again, not trying to pat myself on the back here too much, but I feel like I am a very competent, very strong veterinarian who's done great things, but my grades wouldn't suggest otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated middle of the bell curve, and I was proud of it.
Yeah.
I look at, some of the top graduates from my class, and I'd be like, oh, well, that's going to be interesting to see how they came out, how things go, because,
Yep.
there were kids in my class that had zero veterinary experience and got
Oh,
in. And there's still schools like that right now. There's still schools that have zero interview and
mhm.
kids get in. So, it's a concern. It's a big concern.
Oh, I
And
agree
I mean,
completely.
and another concern is the NAVLE scores. So do you think the NAVLE is getting harder or stupider, or like when I say stupider, I meaning that ironically, like stupid questions, or do you just think that these kids are so worried about doing well in school they're not learning?
I think the NAVLE is a really interesting example, G. You're bringing up really good questions. I think the NAVLE is firmly rooted in that ultra old school mindset of just memorize 30,000 diseases across 15 species. That's what it takes to be a veterinarian. Again, at Davis and Western and all these schools, even Penn's coming up with it now. They're building in case-based learning, problem-based learning, really trying to teach students in one way or another, like, hey, it's normal to not know the answer. Here's the steps you go through to find an answer and to come to the right solution. NAVLE has not adopted that in any way, at least when I took it or even when I continue to help other students. It's still just straight, what can you memorize? And it's across all species. You probably were the same way. When I was studying for it, I was like, okay, go really hard in dogs and cats, try to swing for the fences with horses. I'm going to completely forsake pigs. Like, I'm not going to remember a single thing about pigs. Don't even bother trying. That's not the way I would actually approach a pig problem if you brought it to me, but NAVLE demands that I just memorize and regurgitate. So I think NAVLE's stuck in the past, and I'm curious to see how they will modernize that test.
Well, they're getting audited right now, correct? If I'm not mistaken, there's a
Oh, I actually don't
external
know.
audit. Yeah, I mean, I think the NAVLE was the only national board exam that's never gotten an external audit done.
Why?
Because I no I think the AVMA is I think the AVMA means well,
Mm-hmm,
but I think they do a very poor job. It's a group of good old boys.
mm-hmm,
Um, they're more like politicians once they go to the AVMA.
mm-hmm.
Um, I and the thing is, like, in general, this profession is so slow to change,
Yeah.
and we're going to get to that with you for sure in a little bit. But I just think that's the problem. They just like, oh, we've been doing the same test for 40 years. Why did we need to change it? Well, society's changed. The way we
Yeah.
learn has changed. There's even the freaking new math. Trying to teach this math to my kids as they were growing up, they're like, Dad, that's not how you do it. I'm like, 2 + 2 is 4. What do you mean that's not how you do it? I mean, you want to feel stupid. Try to teach an elementary school kid math.
Yep.
They look right at you. That's not how you do it. Okay.
That's like your whole world shaking asunder. No, you're right. And I'm curious. So I'm going to ask you then. I've had many people be like, well, the NAVLE, and in addition, veterinary medicine is like needs more specialization. Do you think that there is a world as a veterinary student I can choose? I'm just testing for dogs and cats, and that's all I'll be licensed for, and basically be like, yep, I'm not a licensed veterinarian for horses, or vice versa. The large animal people can be like, we're forsaking small. It's not on our test. We have uh, provisional licenses in that regard. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that was a debate going on when I graduated in 2000.
Yeah.
Davis kids were having a hard time passing the California State Board exam and the National Board exam because they were obviously they were going down the path of small animal only, and you got minimal large animal.
Yep.
Where I was at Illinois, and I remember exactly. It was Dr. Shipley, phenomenal professor. Dr. Shipley, love you. He actually took our bearded dragon for his son. He's an amazing guy, but he was very proud and would stand in front and says, "Hey, we're here to train veterinarians, not dog and cat lovers." So but again, does that go back to, not to put anything bad on Dr. Shipley, because again, he was an amazing professor,
Yeah.
but is that the good old boy club there? You know what I'm saying? Like, why should we change? And it was crazy because when I graduated, Davis offered a semester class to their students on how to pass the California board exam. And yet Illinois sent 13 from my year. 13 went out to California. All 13 of us passed the California board exam, which was harder than the NAVLE, which was harder than New York.
Yep.
Obviously, the California board exam is only laws now, but that was because when you sat down, there were 6 versions of the test.
Yep.
I got the pig version. So that meant the majority of the test questions were on pig. A lot of them were probably quote unquote test questions for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I flew through it because at Illinois, we had a 5 credit hour class one semester just on swine. So I knew pig medicine like there was no tomorrow. And those questions were so easy. I scored a 96 on that California State Board exam.
Incredible.
This kid that was C equals DVM. And I think my wife, I think she had cat. Her best friend from vet school had dog. But the first guy I worked for out here in Southern California, he had rabbit theriogenology.
I just stand up and walk out. I'm gonna try again later, guy.
Yeah, exactly. When's the second test?
Yep.
And getting back to the NAVLE, like you said, there still 2 parts to the NAVLE. It was a 2-day test for us. One part was multiple choice all day. One was a half day with the magic pen. Where you underline it and then the words would pop up. Otherwise, you got one of the magic pens, and otherwise a blank piece of paper until you went over it with the pen. And I swear to gosh, on the cow herd mastitis, whatever, yep. I had that whole page. I was like, oh, I failed this question.
Yep.
But then I did the cat abscess question in 3 lines.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, there are things that you remember from the NAVLE. I remember I had a question: how thick is the fat at the dorsal fin of a beluga whale?
No, I mean, I believe you, but that can't be that's what I mean, where it's like, are we actually testing for applicable knowledge, or are we just testing for obscurity and for basically like trivia?
Well, I guess if you're giving an IM injection, you need to know, right?
No.
It's
why would I need to know that, G?
but I mean, that's kind of there. That's the, and it's like, it's funny. It's funny. I hope they change some of the NAVLE because, like I said, the NAVLE scores are dropping, right? The data's there. The passing rates of some of these newer schools are atrocious.
Right.
And I don't know why that is, other than I'm thinking these newer schools don't have clinics on site. Did you ever work, when you were in Southern California, did you ever work with any Western students that were on quote unquote externships?
Yeah, I did.
And how involved were they, just in general?
In general, I mean, I've got several that I'm particularly fond of, but like, no, Western students, when I engage with them, and I've engaged with a lot of graduates too, are smart, engaged, participatory. Like, um, yeah, no, I felt like they reflected well. I worked with Ross and a bunch of other students too. Never really had any issues.
Yeah, Ross is incredible because what people don't understand, Ross, is like the second you get off the plane, you are the veterinarian down there.
Yep.
And I like, so at Davis, did you guys have any Ross students come in for during your senior year?
Yeah.
I talking about imposter syndrome. I never really had it when it came to clinics. I was pretty confident in my abilities,
Hmm.
but they're like, "Oh yeah, I did a GDV day 3," and I'm like, "What?"
Yep. Well, and to
Like,
make it to Davis, those students had to be like smart and good grades and everything else too. So when they got there, again, talking over with you, we'd be like, "Oh, we're curious what the Ross students are going to be like. Like we're Davis, so we must be the smartest." But we'd be like, "These Ross people seem wildly smart. Like they're running circles around us in rounds." And it really just does goes to show like if you want to get good at something, you can. Like it's all about how you apply yourself to some extent.
yeah, I'm really happy though. I'm glad you haven't said yet. This is how we do it at Davis because that's how all the fucking professors say it when you go to any meeting.
Yep.
This is how we do it at Davis.
Yep. Minimum database, CBC, X-rays, ultrasound, UA with culture, like they, yeah.
And it's very easy to do because people go to Davis because they know they need that extra step. But I mean, it was like, no, this is how we do it at Davis. And also Penn. Penn's the other one.
At Penn, yeah,
The VMDs. The
yep,
VMDs.
the VMDs.
And I no, don't get me wrong. You Penn grads, you're amazing. I'm just giving you guys shit. But why can't you be DVMs like everybody else? I mean, I mean, have you ever thought that? Has anyone ever researched that? Why are they VMDs?
I've never researched it. I probably will after this convo. I have thought about it a whole lot and been like, I don't get it, but
Yeah. How long were
oh,
you? How long were you in regular practice before you went relief?
um, so the review, like, because my story feels a little wonky to some people. I was an unlicensed technician for 6 years before school. So like same practice, uh, worked a lot, got the experience. You got something to say?
Stop right. Yeah, stop right there. Do you think that prepared you more for veterinary medicine than school did?
Hell yes. I knew
Okay,
how
same
to.
here.
Yep, I
Same
knew
here.
how to do things. I knew how to do estimates. I knew disease processes, what it was supposed to look like at start and finish, and then I just got the details in vet school.
Thank you. It was like what I always tell people, it's icing on the cake. That's what
Hmm.
vet school was to me. That's how I could sit in virology for a semester and say, this is all bullshit. Not
Virology
once
is
in five
cool.
years, not once in 5 years have I ever heard any veterinarian talk about a virus this way.
Fair, 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 fair. You don't get excited to talk about coronaviruses and like be like, oh yeah, look at these papillomas and everything else.
Well, I mean, no. Oral papilloma, it is a virus. It's
Right,
contagious.
right.
I don't need to know the freaking anything. I mean, if are you going to sit there and discuss with an owner in depth about the structure of that virus?
Well, to know, but to be fair, I'm not gonna need to know where the IM level is for a beluga whale or whatever you said either was earlier.
But they didn't teach that in school, so I didn't worry about that. But but the thing is, like virology, is like mRNA viruses,
Yeah.
DNA viruses, all these viruses, and I'm like, oh my gosh, don't need to know this. Tell
Yep.
me which viruses I need to vaccinate for. Let me know which ones don't have vaccines.
Yep.
Let me know what these viruses do, and let's leave it at that.
Yep.
I think that's a lot. But I mean, is that where they try to separate the men from the boys? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Like it was crazy, crazy, crazy. Like we had a whole semester on our neuroanatomy was a 5 credit class, and it was all the different pathways of the brain and all that stuff. And I understand if you're going to go specialize, it's important because neurology is like to me is like astrophysics.
Yep.
Um, because you really can't see it, right? You don't. I have to see it. Like this is the brain. Yes. This is the cerebellum. Yes. These are the ventricles of the brain. Yes. This is the cerebellar artery. Okay, that I can see and I understand. But once you start talking about pathways and all those things that are things that I'm never going to use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like, is this really that important? But again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the veterinary education system needs a big disruption, but I'm pretty sure it does.
So what would that disruption, as someone who loves to innovate, which is cousins with disruption, like what would that,
Like you,
yeah, what would that innovation look like? Is this means like, hey, we're gonna flip it instead of 3 years in class and 6 months arguably in clinics, is it 3 years in clinics and then 1 year in class just to do
no,
as a
no, no,
capstone?
no, no. I would have the classes taught. Okay, I would do somehow or another, if we could get like half a year of normal, half a year of abnormal, and then when you get into the pathology stuff, have GPs teach it.
Okay.
Right? Have an equine practitioner, have a farm food animal practitioner, have a swine practitioner, have small animal practitioners, have a surgeon, that's actually out in practice. I think I think that would be more beneficial for students to make them more well-rounded, because not only can they talk to you about the disease, they can also teach at the exact same time how to talk to the client about the disease.
Yeah. Which is lacking, which is something that I mentioned. Like we don't do a good enough job of talking. We talk at clients, we don't talk with them. We don't like take them on a journey. So yeah, I'm with you.
Right. And that's why with Danny Rablin from Ready Vet Go,
Yeah.
and we started a new CE, which is me teaching. Our first class was just diarrhea, and I just taught them how to put it into different buckets and how to look at it, how these buckets should be organized by different ages. Like if you see a dog, a puppy that has diarrhea, if all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, it's probably neoplastic, we have a big problem, right? Like what are your top three when you see a puppy? It's like parasites, parasites, parasites,
Yep.
possibly bacteria, could be food.
Yep.
Viral. I mean, you got to get those. If you're going to go for metabolic problems, and don't get me wrong, there's unicorns that come in. There are unicorns that come in, but you got to keep it really simple. And I think veterinary medicine teaches this education right now teaches you, it does a great job to teach you how to work it down, but it never, people, when they start working it down, I think they never start at the very top, which is the basics. Like how many veterinary students do you know are early career vets that think that everything has Cushing's?
It's pretty frequent on the list. Addison's pops up a lot too.
But the funny thing is Addison pops up a lot, but they don't test for it. Right? Like they think it's Addison's because perfect example. I was doing relief work and this one veterinarian had me calling back blood work, because that's another thing with relief. We'll get into this too. Relief vets don't call back other people's lab work.
Yep.
So she's like, could you call these clients? And they're like, oh, you're up in a room with an ACTH stim test. I'm like, oh, let me look at the lab work. It was a cat.
Oh.
You just said it. Oh. And then she had a dog that she thought had Addison's because the sodium was 141 and the potassium was 5.5.
So not that wild.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, atypical Addison's, chronic diarrhea, yeah, those are all possibilities, but it's like, if you really think it's Addison's, just run a resting cortisol. Mm-hmm. That will clear it like really quick. Like if you get a cortisol that comes back at like 2 or higher, you're good. 2 is gray zone, and then obviously anything under that, you got to think about it. But
not arguing, just asking. Even with like patients being stressed at the vet's office and stuff like that, like I always like to triple check people's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many. I mean, trust me, I think Addison's is not diagnosed enough. I will say that, but I think you truly. I mean, Addison's has. You see a poodle or a doodle, you know what I mean. So that's that. But the thing is, like, truly, most Addison's cases, the typical Addison's cases, are textbook. Thin, just not gaining weight, lethargy. Sometimes they come in almost comatose.
Yep.
and an Addisonian crisis. Um, and the thing that, you will see that potassium, sodium, and potassium really be off. Like, you
Yeah.
got to have a low sodium. Like, 139 is not that low if they've been vomiting, in my opinion, in my hands and what I've seen. Now,
Right.
some internists might be like, oh, maybe. But no, the thing is, like, I mean, again, just arresting cortisol is a good way to test it. But
That's
I
fair.
think the Cushing, on the flip side, the Cushing's elevated alk phos, and everyone's always thinking Cushing's, even though the specific gravity is 1052.
Yeah, the dog's just fat then. The dog is just fat.
you know, so I digress off the medicine part. But I think those are things that, again, getting back to my original point, is they come out thinking too much like the white pillar and not bringing it back to west, like the old, wild west type medicine. Like, let's just take it step by step. Let's keep it easy. Symptomatic treatment. Let's see where we go from there. And don't get me wrong. Some clients want to do everything. And if you have that client, okay.
Yeah.
But it's really hard right now because all those tests that you mentioned they do at Davis, what's the average invoice, at least in California right now? $2,000
Hmm.
minimum.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah. And that's what the lifetime of care study, although I want to say before I talk about the lifetime of care study, what we're doing right now is what we need more of, but I recognize it's wildly difficult to teach this way. To be like, hey, black and white answers, not really a thing. That's why they call it practicing medicine. We just talked about ways that these diseases, both Cushing's and Addison, will look common and uncommon and how to basically navigate it without stressing. But again, school teaches you in a pass, fail, or graded environment. Get the right answer. There is one right answer. If you didn't get it, you're in the wrong, which makes people get very knee jerky when you tell them they're wrong as well.
Because they're perfectionists.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clients used to tell me I was wrong all the time. Check out my Google reviews and my Yelp reviews. They'll tell you.
They will tell you.
They will tell the world if you're wrong. But no, I'm very happy. My clients were incredible. 25 years. I probably had 7 or 8 negative reviews.
Wow. That was incredible.
Yeah, but I knew I wasn't going to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
I have a very what you see here with me now is exactly how I am with my friends and my family and my clients. And I don't try to sugarcoat anything for them. It's very hard to have some very difficult discussions, and that's also another thing that I think vet school really is lacking, is how to have those crucial conversations. I know they have actors coming in now, but it's one thing to tell an actor that their animal didn't make it through surgery. It's another thing to have to pick up the phone or go out in the waiting room and tell a client the same thing.
Yeah.
You can't compare them.
Yep. And that's where again you can teach medical knowledge. You can't teach, or at least it's really hard to teach, like we said, that interpersonal knowledge, that emotional intelligence. And sometimes I wonder if we're selecting enough for emotional intelligence because grades don't tell the whole story.
Were you reading my dissertation?
Nope, I think you and I just think alike. That's why so many people have been like, man, we need to connect these guys together. Garth's been working on this for years.
Yeah, shout out to Veterinary Vibes. Yeah, so I'm looking at early career veterinarians, and you're absolutely correct. My early career study, I'm looking at realistic career preview. How long did you truly work at a clinic, and what was your duty there? Like, were you kennel, or were you like 5 years veterinary assistant like you and me? Then I'm also looking at the emotional demands that are required to be a veterinarian. I'm looking at mentorship. I'm looking at professional identity. Truly, what are your values?
Yep.
Because if one of your top values is work-life balance, then I don't think veterinary clinical medicine is probably going to be the right fit. There's a lot of great jobs out there that are not in the clinics for veterinarians that make a lot of money, and you can have that work-life balance. And I hate that term work-life balance, but anyways, we'll use it right now. And then the last thing is I'm having everyone do an emotional intelligence test.
Nice.
And I'm going to compare it to their GPA.
I think that's going to be some spicy results. I can't wait to see this. I
Yeah,
won't say
but
I'll be gloating. I'm just curious to see what will
yeah,
happen.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, then I'm looking at stress in three ways. I'm doing interviews, I'm doing quantitative survey, and I'm also doing cortisol levels.
Oh, so you actually are doing cortisol levels. I was going to ask. Cool.
Yeah, no one's done that. No one's looked at allostatic load in the profession.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to kind of look at it and say, okay, this is definitely something that needs to be looked at, and hopefully someone will run with that.
Yeah.
But they'll probably have the same issues I have trying to get veterinarians to fill out surveys.
Yeah, so that's another fun thing about our profession. So you've heard me say this. We are ridiculously hardworking to a fault. We are very risk averse. We're very sticky, but like we don't like change. We highly value privacy as both an individual and as a profession. So multiple companies have been like, well, I want to know what vets think about this statistically, not just word of mouth, but statistically. And man, surveys are so hard because you put a survey in front of them, they're like, you're trying to put me in a box. You're trying to get to know me in a way I don't want. Like, not about that. So it's hard to navigate.
It is. Well, they have no problem bitching about it. But if you have people that want to try to change it, they don't want to fill out a survey. So, and that's the problem as well. And I mean, we put ourselves in the silos, right? As a practitioner,
Mhm.
as a practice, and as a profession, we kind of silo ourselves. And I mean, that's when you don't work with other people to try to get results, your job is very hard.
It's true.
And I don't know if that's a pride thing. I don't know if it's a competition thing or if it's a personality thing. I don't know which one of those it is. But I think this profession would be so much easier if we all work together. We all work together. Stop competing with each other.
Agree 100%. I want to flip the script for a second to ask you another question here. So we've talked
Yeah.
about things from the perspective of the veterinarian, which is good. Again, I'm a vet, you're a vet. I deeply love my profession. Like that won't ever change. But I also believe that the best companies and therefore the best industries are obsessed with solving customer problems. Like I mentioned earlier, the synchronicity or however you pronounce it, lifetime of care study that came out from Nationwide. Did you happen to see it?
No.
So the big takeaway, it's like an 8-page summary. I can send it to you. But the big takeaway is they surveyed via Nationwide and some other insurance companies a lot of pet owners and asked pet owners on the average age of your dog's life. Let's assume that all dogs live to be 12 years old. How much do you think you will spend on your dog over the course of its lifetime? That includes vet bills, that includes food and grooming and everything else. And the survey showed that the average owner thinks that they'll spend around 8 grand, 9 grand over the course of a 12-year dog's lifespan. When in reality, as of 2025, pet owners are spending between $22,000 and $60,000 over that same lifetime of a dog. They went through and surveyed owners, asking them the 6 things that concern them most financially. Again, fascinating survey. They were like, what happens when you don't have enough money? The majority of them don't go to things like care credit. They borrow money from friends and family when they need it, or they just make it work. But of the 6 things that pet owners are most scared of, 4 of them, the top 4 were veterinary related. They were most scared of going to the vet, an emergency vet bill, an emergency surgery, the cost of pharmaceutical drugs, the cost of dog food, and then the cost of boarding and grooming were the 6 things that financially concern them the most. And again,
Well,
I was
those
like,
those top three.
yeah,
What was it? Emergency surgery, emergency room, and
just
going to the vet, right?
correct.
You can relate. That's the same answers they probably would say for human medicine too.
Right, exactly. But how do we not, as someone who doesn't have and doesn't want to be human medicine, how do we flip the script and say, okay, our customers are spending arguably anywhere from 3 to almost 10 times as much as they expect over the lifetime of their pet. They're flagging in more than one way saying, I can't afford to go to the veterinary office. I'm concerned. We're seeing a reduction in people adopting pets because they're appropriately recognizing pets are a big investment. It's good to talk about, well, we as a profession need smarter vets or different vets, but like, how do we solve this from the customer side? How do we approach this? It's a big question, I know, but I was excited to ask you.
And I don't want to say it without getting in trouble. We need more private practices opening up.
Okay.
We need more of these corporations that work not corporate practices, but corporations that supply services to the veterinary community to drop their costs.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, because corporate entities came into veterinary medicine, veterinarians are starting to get paid more, which is great, right? I'm not going to argue that, but the problem is their technicians and their support staff are not. In California alone, the cost of living is through the roof.
Right.
And I would be interested to see that study broken down by state.
Yeah, that'd be interesting
right?
to see.
But then again, the cost of care the problem is that the cost of care started going up during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Corporate groups are raising their fees, especially at emergency clinics, quarterly.
Yep.
And they're going up not well above inflation rate.
So we're 4x growth for cost compared to the rate of inflation over the past 5 years. Completely with you.
Right? That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Can we put the genie back in the bottle is basically what you're asking me.
Well, and even on the private practice level, because you're right, I'm an advocate for private practice. I still very much hope, despite all the fun career things I'm doing now, to own my own veterinary practice one day. But I'm also trying to be smart and be like, when I talk to other private practice owners, they tell me, like you said, staffing, whatever you want to call it, OPEX is through the roof. I'm hearing that cost of goods is through the roof. Real estate is through the roof. So I'm actually not pointing my finger saying, I think that secretly private practices are making a killing, but I'm also having a hard time rationalizing and being like, well, is it really just that everything is that much more expensive? Is there a realm to be cheaper for clients and still have a veterinary practice owner who's not eating top ramen along with his team? Like, what does that ratio look like?
Yeah, that's a very hard thing to say, because when I owned my practice, there were days that my butthole would pucker, wondering can I make payroll?
Yeah.
Can I pay rent? Can I pay my business loan?
Yeah.
Can I pay my lab fees? Every freaking morning I woke up. And the problem with my generation of veterinary owner is that veterinary medicine from 2000 to 2006, 2007 was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Recession came, and talking about a profession that hates to change, they had to change overnight. They had to pivot. And so we all pivoted. I didn't fire anybody. I didn't have to release anybody. I just cut everyone down to 30 hours a week. I still paid all their benefits, but at least I saved some money that way. Another thing I did is because practice had slowed down, right?
Yeah.
People weren't coming in as much. And we weren't the only profession affected by it. It was dental, chiropractic, optometry, like all those were suffering the same thing. Like I was talking to a dentist. He's like, yeah, people used to come and get their root canal when their pain was a 3 or 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now they wait till it's an 8 or a 9. And that was during the Great Recession. But what the freak was I saying? I'm 52 and losing it. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying was we had to pivot because of the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And we had to learn how to practice medicine well below the gold standard, because a great majority of our clients didn't have funds. And by the way, it's not that people don't apply for care credit. Those people that are asking friends and family for money probably do not have the credit score to get care credit. And I know care credit after the Great Recession changed their ways of doing things, so it was easier to get care credit, but it's still very hard for people to get credit for their animals. You still have to have a good credit score. And then my generation, we're still doing okay, and we're just getting out, and we're starting to get going again. And then visits around 2018, 2019 started going back down. And then boom, 2020 hit. And wow, talking about a rocket ship for veterinary medicine. COVID was the greatest thing that happened for the profession. Clients had to stay outside. We were able to, see things. We were so efficient, so efficient. And there were veterinary clinics that shut down and were turning cases away. And me on my entrepreneur head, I was like, no way, we're going to keep going. We're going to, and it was actually a fireable offense if I heard a receptionist turn away an animal, because animals don't choose when they get sick. That's the way I practiced. Always. Animals don't choose. Now, if a client calls me at 5:50 and says my dog's been vomiting for 4 days, I'll see you tomorrow, or go to urgent care, right? But yeah, we were seeing clients from everywhere, and it was a great time. But we were able to pivot quickly because of the Great Recession. So from my thing, it was great. But then when they saw that, holy cow, veterinary medicine made it through the Great Recession, veterinary medicine blew up during COVID.
Yep.
All these corporate groups, that's when they started coming in. But also these corporations that help supply veterinary medicine started jacking up their prices. Plus, then it didn't help of the inflation that we started dealing with after COVID.
Yep.
It was horrible. How much is your gas right now in North Carolina?
About $3. It's been hanging out around $2.89, $3 a gallon.
Okay, I filled up at $5.59 a gallon out.
Yeah, I don't miss California gas prices at all, man. It's so much.
But think about it. If you have an SUV that has 22 gallons,
yep,
that's $44 more a tank.
Yep.
And usually on a Suburban, you have to fill up, unless you have a diesel, you got to fill up weekly.
Yep.
I mean, that's $200 possibly more a month, $2,400 more a year, just in gas for one car.
Correct.
So, veterinarians, we're dealing with that too, because we have to feed our families, we have to feed our staff, we have to feed all these things. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, at least in California, I don't know how the cost of veterinary medicine can come down if the cost of living doesn't.
Has the cost of living ever gone down historically? I'm just talking like beyond vet med. Is that a thing that technically happens? I thought inflation is high or inflation is low, but like you basically have to, the solution to pollution is dilution, that you just have to wait it out.
Well, you also have to look at it from an economic, put an economist hat on.
Yeah.
We've made veterinary medicine a luxury item.
Yes, exactly. The 80-20 rule is painfully in effect.
Completely made it a luxury item. And I mean, how much yesterday I was doing a relief shift, and this poor animal was covered in fleas.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we can't afford flea meds because they're so expensive.
Because they're so expensive. It's $140 for a 6-pack half the time of Revolution or whatever it is for a small dog.
Yes. So, but do I have any control over that? That's not under my control.
Right.
That's under the pharmaceuticals control.
Right.
So again, that's a perfect example. Look how much cytologies from Antec or IDEX have gone up. I mean, I stopped doing fine needle aspirates. I'm like, let's remove this and find out what it is.
Yep.
I'm not going to waste your $300.
Yep.
Because I could probably do a local, remove this thing, get it off, send it off, and your bill will be $500 total.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, that makes more sense.
Exactly.
But again, that comes down to the gold standard. Would gold standard say, hey, you need to aspirate it before you remove it?
Absolutely. And that's where I think we have to go to war with gold standard. I'm okay with it existing. It can't lead us by the nose into forcing ourselves, for better or worse, just for worse, to charge clients more.